This program was brought to you by Koller Institute of Venture at Tel Aviv University.
It's a pleasure to be here. As I started my presentation around the table, I'm wearing too many hats, but some of them are unique to this audience. So, first of all, I would say that before getting into the government place in innovation and especially in deep innovation, I'm a researcher. I'm a professor at Tel Aviv University, working both on basic research as well as applied one. We've been inventors of more than 30 patent families, resulted in technology that was licensed to international companies, the establishment of startup companies. StoreDot is the last one, you may heard of, with $6 million from Samsung, raised recently for just the concept and very new technology. Here at Tel Aviv University, I was vice president for research, head of chairman of Ramot. And currently, I serve also as the chief scientist of the Ministry of Science and Technology. I guess that most of you are familiar with the chief scientist of what used to be the Ministry of Industry, Trade and Labor, because you are the clients of these chief scientists. Actually, there's actually a dichotomic distinction between the two chief scientists, well, 12 ones, but between two major ones, as I would say. We fund only a non-profit organization, which includes universities, colleges, research institutes, so on and so forth. And chief scientist in the Ministry of Economy is funding only for-profit organization. And the small intersection is the tech transfer companies. So I will give you also some hints about the way that we see the entire ecosystem in the government. Because I have only 15 or 18 minutes, I won't speak about my own research, but I will just mention in passing that I will mention deep innovation. And our research started from trying to understand disease. We moved to electronics, making display for new computers and electronics, and going back to the pharma business. And if somebody will be interested in this subject, I will be very happy to elaborate during the breaks of other places. So we are interested, and especially in the Ministry of Science and Technology, I mentioned just some of our raison d'etre or mission statements, is to create innovation, because we are dealing with the very basic. We are scientists, as the Ministry of Science, funding early research. We are interested in creating those areas of research that leads later on to the creation of new business, of new products, of new initiatives. And it's not only things that you can see the movement into products very early. Some of the examples in which you started with type of innovation which won't clearly lead to some products was the early days of solid state physics for your semiconductor industry. Started with very basic research, but then funneled through these areas. Things that are related to the development of new drugs that were based on basic biology. We try to look for the innovation, and from the economical point of view, we're trying always to be here, to be in the place in which you have a large R&D investment. And for me personally, I would distinguish between the R and the D. We are interested more in the R. The Ministry of Economy is interested more in the D. And the two of them are very important. But we would like to be here. We would like to be in the place when you have large R&D, but also large profit. And I think now, although the Institute want to be international, I would try to discuss the Israeli point. we have several companies. We have not have enough large companies, but one large company that we have is Teva. As is clearly understood by analyzing Teva activities, the financial ones, most of the profit, but not most of the revenue, comes from Copaxone, this drug that was invented at the Weizmann Institute. So while it contributes to the overall revenues, something, I would say something like quarter of the revenues or even less, it contributes significantly to the profit of the organization. And in Israel, we would like to be in this place. We would like to be, yes, we would like to be in the place when we have innovative drugs and not generic drugs. I say it also to the CEO of Teva, so you can record me. And I give the example of Switzerland. Switzerland is a small country, the size of Israel. They have 2 out of the 10 largest pharma companies in the world are in Switzerland, and they contribute together something like 100 billion US dollars in revenues. We could be in the same state in Israel, and would like to push forward to this direction. So it's not only small countries like Israel and Switzerland. There's really, in the academic community in the US, there's a call to have more deep innovation and more deep innovation in the US. It should be stated and it should be understood that for most of the things that we could think about deep innovation into the very fundamental areas of new ventures. The US was leader for many years and still is the leader. But as you will see later from the investment and from the relative investment in different activity, that is changing. But still, people has discussed how you can invent in deep innovation and how you can go through the regular grant proposal, which is for us. Some of you are, of the people here are coming from the academic world. Is the normal mechanism for getting grants. We are trying to, in the Ministry of Economy, try to look also for innovative things. But the example that Ken Deal give here, and Ken Deal is one of the leading scientists, combining both basic science as well as applied science, is trying to have a grant to invent the iPad. And you can read here, there's no need, you have computers and iPhones. It would never go through regular grant agencies. And we are trying to think, how can you encourage, how can you fund, how can you bring the next thing that you can never, you won't think about it. And I will get into it later. It's the combination of cultural know-how together with technological know-how. Because Steve Jobs is a very unique person, but it is not only the combination. There were music players before, there were portable computers before. It's understanding the combination between technology and culture that make a big difference. And you may have the presentation then, but just rather than asking whether the problem is important, one must ask whether it's interesting. Rather than hoping for an expected outcome, one might hope for a surprise. Instead of minimizing the time for a payoff, the goal is to maximize how long is the consequences will reverberate. Instead of more scrutiny and longer proposal, deep innovation requires less scrutiny and shorter proposals, and so on and so forth. And another thing that is very important to look, and this happens also in Israel, it's the change between investment in industrial R&D as compared to federal R&D. In Israel, the government R&D. So Israel is very proud of having 4.7% of our GDP invested in R&D. We know all how to tell it to all that come here for the startup nation. But still, one thing that we see is we're getting lower and lower investment in research that is not related to industrial research. And in Israel, we are getting to numbers that are even lower than in the US. We are getting now to something like 0.9% of investment of the GDP in R&D that is related to non-industrial R&D. And this is the source for deep innovation. So there are key issues related to deep innovation versus incremental innovation. Timescales and payoff of deep innovation, which could be considered and should be understood. Who should fund it? R&D as percentage of GDP, industrial versus federal. Who should enjoy the fruits of deep innovation? In the US, there was a decision, I guess that most of you are familiar with the Bayh-Dole Act, which was a decision by the US government to allow university and research institute to enjoy the fruits of deep innovation, basically. The federal investment in those activities that are not directly related to products. In Israel, the situation is a little bit different. I should say that Chok HaMoP, the law of R&D in Israel, is preventing some of trading of deep innovation products or innovation products in general, in the general arena. I had discussions with former ministries of industry, including one former prime minister, a former chief scientist of the Ministry of Economy. It's a very complicated situation. And from my point of view, and I should stress it, it's a little bit like taxation. When you have taxation, you feel that on the surface it's a very good thing. You protect your local industry. You do not allow unfair competition. But as we learn over the years, countries with high taxations have direct correlation to low innovation and industry that is not innovative enough and is not competitive enough. So this is just the 2 cents on R&D. How we see the success path? It's a policy issue. It's of course the investment in R&D, and I would stress R more than D. And here where the academic world, the government, and the business community comes, it's the need for top-level experts in technology and natural sciences. This is the universities. This is the Ministry of Science in our various mechanisms. I should say another thing. It sounds like for the Americans, motherhood and apple pie, but we do believe and we do provide a situation in which we would like to have most of the sectors of the Israeli society as part of this, and we have special programs in quite relative high amount for encouraging Arab minorities to get into science and technology, women, which are not minority, but majority, to get into engineering. We don't have enough women engineers. There's need for commercial know-how, and places like here, and these institutes are very important. And I stressed it again, we need the cultural know-how, because many of the inventions were not really technological, but really understanding how you can apply a cultural know-how into a technology. And all in all, you need some technology foresight. It's not only the business point of view, but also the technological point of view. Places like in Israel, the Shmuel Neiman Institute, Institute for Technology Forecast at Tel Aviv University, other places, and other places globally. And this is really how to have innovation policy. So this is a little bit simplistic way, but we would like to move from just design, technology process, really to connection, to cultural value and desires. And this is, if we go back to the iPad example, if we go back to other successful stories, this is really the connection. Another thing that's coming from those who give the deal flow or the technology flow to VCs and other mechanisms, interdisciplinary point of view is very important in order to bring about new technologies. And I think that in the case of green technology, which is now is being pursued by many VC and as well as other family funds and other foundations, the contribution is from very different sources, moving through other fields of physical science, biological science, engineering, agriculture, so on and so forth. I will just mention because I've almost done. Yeah, just that you will know a little bit about the Ministry of Science and Technology. That my salary is so high that I must give them the. We are really interested in this gray zone and in bridging the gap between basic science, which is funding by Israeli Science Foundation, other mechanism, the Ministry of what used to be Trade and Labor, Industry, Trade and Labor, now the Ministry of Economy, which has, from my point of view, a small R and a large D. It's very important. Development is to get a product into the market finally, you need also development, it's for sure. But we're interested in strategic research, those things in the middle, bridging the development gap. You're familiar with all this. And this is the value chain, moving from those things funded by the blue sky research, basic research, into strategic research, supporting the training of new academic personnel, then moving to professional ministries, Ministry of Economy, chief scientist of the Ministry of Economy, and going to VCs and markets. Just to let you know, because I've been asked so many times, and I'll finish by that. What is a chief scientist? Because everybody knows the chief scientist of the Ministry of Economy. So actually there are 12 different chief scientists in all the executive branches of the Israeli government: education, agriculture, energy and water, transportation, so on and so forth. Even in the Ministry of Immigration, Misrad L'Klitat Aliyah, there is a chief scientist. We have a form of chief scientist. It's headed by the chief scientist of the Ministry of Science and Technology, your humble servant. And this is responsible for executing the government-directed R&D in Israel and defining national priorities, coordinating research, share infrastructures, serving as chief scientist or a scientist advisor to the Prime Minister and Prime Minister's office. We have several programs.
Okay.
Done. Yeah, okay. The buzz is here. Yeah. Okay. Space Authority.
Very good.
Success story. Moving from, I guess that some of you in the VC business know some of these. All of these started with some grants for the Ministry of Science and Technology. All of them, and including some failures, so we put only the success stories. And also this one, and thank you.
Thank you very much.
This program was brought to you by Koller Institute of Venture at Tel Aviv University.